The winter sun hovered low over the quiet western town of Hollow Ridge, casting long pale beams across the snow-covered street, yet offering hardly any warmth to those who walked upon it. The morning had begun like any other, but something in the air felt heavy, as if the world itself were holding its breath. And that was when 7-year-old Mira Halston noticed the woman on the bench, an obese, lonely widow with soft, sorrowful eyes, holding 2 worn ragdolls against her chest as though they were the last pieces of her heart left unbroken. If you believe kindness can still change a life, if you believe everyone deserves a second chance, then please like, comment, share, and subscribe to Kindness Corner. And tell us in the comments, where are you watching from today? Mira tugged gently on her father's coat, but he was distracted by the errands he had planned. The day was supposed to be simple, a quick trip into town, a few supplies for Christmas morning, and then back to their warm cabin. But Mira kept looking back at the widow, her small face tight with concern. The woman's name, though Mira didn't know it yet, was Kira Duvall. And Kira had once been a woman known for her laughter, her strength, and her generosity. But life had a way of stealing the brightest things from people, sometimes all at once, leaving them wandering through a world that no longer resembled what they remembered. Kira had lost her husband, Alden, only 2 winters earlier. A fever had taken him swiftly, brutally, leaving no room for hope or farewell. Their small home had grown silent afterward, too silent for a woman who once stitched dolls while humming songs of summers long gone. She had tried to keep her hands busy, sewing bright yarn hair and cheerful painted eyes onto the little dolls that had once brought joy to every child in Hollow Ridge. But business had faded along with the season, and soon Kira found herself sewing not for customers, but for company. The dolls were all she had left of the warmth she used to carry. Now she sat on the town bench beneath daylight strung with golden lights, the festive decorations mocking her loneliness. Her shawl wrapped around her shoulders, but the cold of being forgotten seeped deeper than winter ever could. People passed, some with polite nods, others looking away, uncomfortable with what they did not understand. But Kira merely held the dolls tighter, as if protecting them from the world that had already taken so much from her. Mira saw what the grown-ups didn't, the quiet ache in Kira's posture, the tremble in her breath, the way her painted smile dolls seemed like borrowed happiness she no longer felt. Myra's father, Rowan Halston, finally noticed his daughter's silence and followed her gaze. He recognized Kira instantly. Everyone did, even if they rarely stopped to speak anymore. Rowan felt a pang of guilt. He had once bought a birthday doll from her years ago, back when she still greeted customers with radiant warmth. He hadn't realized how far she had fallen from that version of herself. As the morning wind stirred, Kira brushed a tear from her cheek, hoping no one saw. But Mira did. And that was when the little girl whispered the question that would alter the course of their Christmas forever. "Daddy, can we bring her home for Christmas?" The innocence of her request held no hesitation, no fear, only genuine compassion. And Rowan felt something soften inside him, something he hadn't realized had grown cold over the years. Rowan knew that inviting a stranger, especially one drowning in her own grief, into their home was no small gesture. But he also knew what Mira did not, that some people survived winters of the heart only because someone else offered them shelter. The hesitation in him faded as he studied Kira's trembling hands. She didn't look needy, she looked abandoned. And there was something profoundly different about the two. The snow began falling lightly as Rowan approached her. Kira startled, unsure whether she should smile, speak, or simply pretend she hadn't been crying. Her loneliness seemed to fold in on itself as she struggled to compose her expression. Rowan sat a respectful distance away on the bench, and Mira walked beside him, small boots crunching in the fresh powder. In that moment, something shifted in the air, an unspoken recognition that even strangers sometimes crossed paths for reasons bigger than themselves. Kira tried to apologize for her appearance, for taking up space, for existing too visibly in a world that often preferred people to suffer quietly. But Rowan gently assured her she owed no such apology. He asked how she'd been, though the answer was written across the lines of her tired face. Kira told them a little about Alden, about the home that felt too empty, and about how sewing the dolls kept her heart from completely breaking. Mira listened closely, not with pity, but with the pure empathy that only a child could offer. As the conversation continued, the warmth of something unexpected began to reach Kira, something she hadn't felt since before her husband's passing. It was the warmth of being seen. Not as a burden, not as a forgotten widow, but as a human being still worthy of belonging. Rowan took a breath, glancing at Mira. The little girl gave him a hopeful nod. And then, with a gentle sincerity, Rowan invited Kira to spend Christmas Day with them. No expectations, no pressure, simply a chance to share warmth, food, and company she'd been missing for far too long. Kira pressed a hand to her mouth, overwhelmed by the sudden kindness. The daylight shimmered against her tears, but for the first time in years, they weren't tears of grief alone. Mira reached out her small hand toward her, and Kira took it with a trembling smile. Something fragile but beautiful formed in that moment: trust, hope, and a whisper of healing. If this story is touching your heart so far, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. It truly helps us bring more heartfelt stories to you. As Rowan loaded the basket of dolls onto the wagon and helped Kira climb aboard, she felt a weight lift she didn't even realize she'd been carrying. The road to their home sparkled under the pale winter sun, and for the first time in so long, Kira felt she wasn't walking it alone. Not every wound heals quickly, and not every heart forgets its losses. But sometimes, all it takes is one unexpected act of kindness to start melting the cold that has settled within us. Before we end, tell us in the comments, have you ever helped someone who needed kindness more than they could ask for? And so, as they rode toward a Christmas none of them would ever forget, Kira held her ragdolls close, but this time, not out of loneliness. This time, she held them with hope.